Hello, everybody. How you doing? We're back again with a Facebook Live. I'm Dylan.
And I'm John.
And John, what do we have here today?
Today we have Refresh from Workhuman. No coffee mug today. This is just a reminder. I will be in Nashville next week for the annual Workhuman conference by the newly titled Workhuman company, formerly Global Force. It's a great conference. I'll be there for almost the whole week down in Nashville. So if you've never been to Workhuman, it's a great conference to go to.
Sounds good. All right. So for all of you who saw our last episode, we began talking about technology and HR. We're going to continue that today with talking about the recruitment part of technology. So started off with first question. How are we seeing technology advance the recruitment process?
A ton. How? I think depends on how willing companies are to use it. Mm-hmm. So, I think last time we talked about, how much people are spending on HR-related technology in the U.S., and a good portion of that is recruitment-based technology. And so why is that? I think that what we realize is that there are a number of components in the recruitment process that are repeatable tasks. So there are ways in which you can build technology to sort of handle the over agains, meaning, you are sourcing for folks, you're looking for people. So, some years back, we started with those Boolean searches, right? That you would go on LinkedIn or you go on some other sites and glean a bunch of information based on data that you're looking for. We need engineers who have this kind of certification, this many years of experience, or in this kind of industry. And you build these programs to say, this is what we're looking for. And then you set them to task. Mm-hmm. And they're really parsing through platforms to find people who fit this. Well, that's something that used to take days for an individual to do in a very manual process. You put technology into place and it does some of that for you. You do that in a fraction of the time. The other way in which we see that happening, I think, from a tech standpoint in recruitment is our areas like assessment, right? So what can we give to people to help measure their skills for the role that we think they're good for? So a lot of that is automated as well. There are components to it that are even automated in terms of even the phone screen. Believe it or not, there's artificial intelligence that will call and ask a couple of, it doesn't have to be a couple, however many you want. I probably see anywhere from 4 to 7 questions that, based on their answers to those questions, they're either in or out. Wow. But that can be done with technology without a real person on the other end. And there's, quite a few companies now that have launched those sort of AI partners when it comes to recruitment. And so you really can do a bunch through technology. And it really is up to the company to decide how much they want to turn on or turn off when it comes to tech.
I do think that's a good idea too, because just the amount of time you could save and allocate that towards something else you need to go over. It could work out great.
And that's a great point. And it's supposed to be that now these folks that are in recruitment-based roles should be able now to spend the time on those matters of distinction, right? Those deeper questions around application of skill sets. Did you ever do it before? Yes, how? Have you never done it before, but you think you're prepared to? What would you do? Those things that now require there to be more of a conversation rather than just sort of like knockout kind of questions. Okay. And that should be what recruitment gets to focus on by applying these pieces of technology. There's also something called stacking, right? So technology can be stacked. You don't always have to use the same platform for all pieces of things. You can have a platform that's handling sourcing. You can then stack on top of that an applicant tracking system through the sourcing here that happens. These tech products can then talk to one another up through the chain, all the way up through onboarding. So, you insert a background screening piece, you insert an assessment piece. All of those things could be different pieces of technology that you stack, and then you have a plan. So, I say that to say, I'm seeing companies that while a piece of software may offer A to Z coverage, you may not want A to Z from that one piece of software. You may want A to D and then put something else at that E spot because you like that platform better or it fits your needs more. Technology really is nimble today that you really can layer in that way.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the second question. What problem is technology solving in recruitment?
So it's probably solving and causing problems in some ways, but it's solving, I think, as you mentioned, first of all, the utilization of time. We can get a lot more clarity around what are people doing as far as the recruiter team. What is each recruiter actually doing? Because once you put some of this tech on and let it do its job, a recruiter needs to manage it, make sure it's not hitting a snag. But there's a lot there. All that automation is really giving you back time. So there should be improvement seen there. I think it also solves the problem of the amount of resources that can be looked into. Often what used to happen with recruitment was some recruiters would have a favorite 1 or 2 or 3 sourcing avenues. And that's really all they focus on. The problem with that is that it may not be as wide as it needs to be, right? And there's only so much time. So if these people were doing it manually, they couldn't search 10, 15, 20, 100. Now with technology, it really allows that to be open. I know there's been a lot of talk about tech in recruitment solving bias that can creep into the recruitment process. I don't know that I would say it solves it. I think it certainly makes some good headway in bias, but we're still a product of what are the kinds of questions that are being asked of people. In what way are they being asked? Is there an unconscious bias or an implicit bias behind some of what has been asked? I'd hate to think that there's explicit bias, but let's just say that there could be ways in which we're framing questions that tend to gear towards one type of candidate over another, whether that's based on gender or socioeconomic background or veteran status, disability, race, all kinds of protected classes. So there's still a component of technology that is input related. So those areas still may keep a door open somewhat for bias, but certainly it is better than it being solely up to one individual who gets to control the whole recruitment process.
Going back to when you said time is a big problem saver for them, do you think now that they can go through more applications and stuff, it gives everyone a fair chance? Because you would think that a big company, if they're doing it manually, they might not be able to go through every application of every person
for sure
is to head in. So by having it automated like that, it gives everyone in a sense a fair chance.
Potentially. And here's what I mean by that. You're absolutely right. I mean, years ago, and not that it doesn't exist at all now, but years ago with larger companies, you had to know somebody because of the way in which they were inundated with resumes. Unless you knew someone, they weren't going to look for your resume. Today, I think that if you don't write your resume the correct way, then you may not show up. That's the other thing you have to think of, because when everything's automated, they're looking for sometimes key phrases, certain keywords that kind of hit high for them. If your resume doesn't have that, even though you might have the best skill sets to do it, you're going to miss out. So having somebody else review your resume, and I don't mean your mom, I mean have somebody like really review your resume. They're going to really help you, especially if they have a recruitment or sourcing background. They're going to know these are the phrases that wind up getting searched more than others. You want to have those in your resume so that it highlights this kind of experience. Because if not, then you're kind of in the same position where you have to know somebody because that resume may get passed over.
Oh, that's a big game changer.
It is.
All right, going on to our third and final question. Is there recruitment technology for small companies, or is it just something that large companies only use?
Well, I mean, on the small end of things, I mean, we see companies at Humoriso, we see companies as, with a handful of folks who are utilizing some level of recruitment technology. So it isn't discriminating as far as employee size. Certainly, though, there is an ROI on how much of the recruitment technology you need. A couple things to keep in mind with recruitment technology is breadth. How wide will it let you go? Well, if you're a very small organization, you may not need to go that wide. You don't need to look at geography, let's say, across the country. There's a few of you and you're working out of Sheboygan. I don't know why Sheboygan is the first place that came to mind, but if that's where you're working out of, you don't, you're not in a position to relocate somebody from Miami or San Francisco or whatever. So why utilize technology that leverages, let's say, national exposure? That's not really where you are. So your ROI on that may not be great because of that. But you certainly can leverage other forms of recruitment technology to be, centric around the area. And I'm only using geography as one simple example. There are lots of pieces to what breadth actually means. But it doesn't limit a small company, though, from exercising it, even if it's a basic applicant tracking system. I appreciate the fact that there's some government compliance around companies of 100 plus who should be using applicant tracking. Obviously we agree with that. We think that the EEO considerations are real from a compliance standpoint. But for the company that has 25 employees, 50 employees, 75 employees, an applicant tracking system is really helpful. It also allows there to be a repository of candidates that were almost, right? So, folks who are out there, I'm sure, have been in the situation where they've been, say, in the top 3 finalists for a role, and they didn't get the role. Well, it certainly means that you had something to offer the company. That company may want to hold on to your information. And if something else opens in 6 months, in a year, even in 2 years, to circle back with somebody and say, hey, I don't know what you're doing now, but we have this role that opened and we thought of you. We held on to your information. We're impressed with the interviews that you gave us. Are you open? And that's something an applicant tracking system can help you keep track of. So it doesn't really matter how large your company is.
I think that's a good point, because it not only helps the business if they're looking for someone that's qualified, it also helps the candidate who was originally searching to have a second chance.
It's funny.
The company decides to look.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. My bad. This week, actually, even at Humoriso, we have a role that's opened, and I circled back with somebody that I had talked to a little over a year ago, and just to say, hey, this role is open, and we chatted about X a year plus ago. Not sure what you're doing. And actually, he had already found another job, just moved like a month or so ago, or a couple months ago, and not in a position to move now. But I was glad that I had the opportunity to circle back with him to say, hey, we took seriously your participation in our interview process previously. So I think that says a lot about each organization that chooses to do that.
I do as well. So we could say that it does work for small companies as well.
It does work for small companies. You don't need to buy every big ticket item. And you don't need to in order to compete. And I know sometimes that's the pressure some small companies feel. Even mid-market companies feel that, like, I have to compete with this company who has 100,000 employees and we've got 1,000, therefore we have to have all the same things. No, you don't. You'd want to be smart, though, about the way you invest those dollars for recruitment tech.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for today. We want to thank everyone who listened in, and for those who are going to check in later. We'll be posting this to YouTube and throughout our Twitter, Instagram, and our other social media platforms. Again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all. Take care.